I said, I've got to follow this dream. And I literally sold the house, bought a really cheap Caravan. So my wife gave up her job in banking, and we literally towed the thing across to Silverstone. We didn't know where to start. And in the front of the Caravan, I had a PC with a printer. And I literally would wake up in the morning, it sounds horrible, but I would literally write sponsorship proposals all day. I had an indomitable will and a dream so big, I was going to go through every adversity to find my way to the top and be someone.
Priaulx goes off, and that might bring out the safety car.
I was unbearable to live with for 2 weeks until the next race because it hurt so much. And many times Joe and I have sat on the floor in tears. You can be going down the darkest tunnel, but you don't know how close you are to the light. Choose your partner wisely when you're going into a sport. You need somebody that is fully engaging in what you do, non-distracting. But you're not going to be a good father or a good husband for quite some time because you have nothing left. I sat in the car and I'll never forget it. He said, Andy, I am afraid I am seeing everything that I don't want to see. So we stopped the test now.
Oof.
But Serge, please, you cannot stop this test. This is everything I've been focusing on my whole life. Please let me continue the test. I won't let you down. A few moments in my career which, if they hadn't happened, I would never have been sat here as a world champion.
Mr. Priaulx, welcome to Backseat Drivers.
Very pleased to be here with you guys.
So you've really made it in life now.
I don't know about that.
It's been a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on because we've just had John Pratt as well.
Yes,
who
really
you've worked
nice.
with a lot. And he touched on a couple of things about your career, and you just had this amazing kind of whirlwind career in both GTs, trying to get into, you know, the Formula One scene as well as a Formula One driver, and an unbelievable career and a unique one for our listeners to listen to because you haven't come from extreme wealth and, you know, just basically paid your way to get to the top. So I guess where I want to start is when did racing first start for you? Where did this urge to be a driver come from?
Well, I've had this chat before actually with Seb a few times, and it's like you have this inner belief that something special is going to happen. And it's a very powerful feeling. It's like a life statement. It comes from internal, and it's a strange one. But it was actually, you know, it came from a point of where my father and my family were all racing, but you know, it was a club level and it was fun. And my grandfather became ill, and I was in hospital, and I just looked at him and I thought, when I get to that stage in life, I want to have left nothing on the table. I really, really want to go all out for what I truly want. And at that moment, I was fully committed to becoming a full-time professional racing driver. And I think you've always got to say, if you want to run a marathon, tell everyone you're going to run a marathon, then you've got to run a marathon. Yeah. So I was so in with that, you know, goal. There was no wriggle room. I was in financially. I had invested my whole, career. I walked away from a family business. My wife walked away from a nice job in banking and finance in Guernsey. We are literally going across the water from Guernsey in a caravan to make our dream happen. And we literally plugged into a circuit here at Silverstone, a little race team at Silverstone, and went about our dream, really. And it was like fantastic. At the same time, I would never recommend it to anybody, not my family, or, it was really ridiculous because I had absolutely no plan B. It was, I'm going to make it at all cost.
At what point was that goal set, though? You mentioned, I want to be a racing driver no matter what. Had you had experience in anything to decide that?
So I had experience in motor racing, but at a totally different discipline, hill climbing, speed hill climbing, which was, really a great discipline, but it was not professional racing. It was, you're racing for fun with your family at weekends at a very high level and very competitive, but and very dangerous. But it wasn't like fully professional. So I was British Hill Climb champion, and I then got invited to do a test with Jackie Stewart and his team, the Paul Stewart Racing team. And it was really came from the fact that I was British Hill Climb champion, won every single week race, had a 100-point maximum score, and I gave me a chance to test. And I actually did all right in the test with Stuart, and they offered me a seat, but I didn't have the money. You know, I think it was 80,000 or something for the drive, and I just didn't have 8,000, let alone 80,000. And that was the point. I said, right, I've got to do this. I'm 20. At that time, I was 21 years old. It was late.
Right. That's really late.
Really late. But I said, I've got to follow this dream. And I literally sold the house, literally bought a really cheap Caravan. I say my wife gave up her job in banking, and we literally towed the thing across to Silverstone. We didn't know where to start. We arrived here. We didn't know where to go. You know, I then started talking to the race teams. One of the race teams, Mike O'Brien at Speed Sport, said, well, you can plug into me this year. You can plug into my unit. And as long as if you do raise any money, you spend it with me. I'm like, well, that's a fair deal. Yeah. And then he got me a job at Silverstone, and, you know, I started to instruct and meet people. But it was just like I had this calling. It was a weird inner belief that something good was going to happen.
I was just going to ask that. So there must have been a point, obviously, like we said, 21's late, plus your wife, I know she's been very supportive of you, but she's got to leave her job and you've got to come across from Guernsey. Why, like, how was there like a eureka moment? Like, okay, this is what I have to do.
It was, I guess, you know, absolute ridiculous when I look back, but it would never have happened had I not done it. It was, I had an indomitable will and a dream so big that I was going to go through every adversity, and it actually sends my hairs up because I miss that feeling. I'm going to go through absolute pain and adversity to find my way to the top and be someone, you know, be something. And that was my opportunity. I mean, at school I struggled. I had dyslexia and all the things that, you know, the wires are crossed like most racing drivers. But I had a pure focus here, and I was going to, you know, make it happen. And it took years for it to really happen. And I was, well, you know, in my sort of early to mid 20s before I actually would say I went from hill climbing to circuit racing, started to win some races, about 23, 24 years old, which is late.
Yeah, that's properly late. I think what you've explained there is taking this real proper leap, right? And not knowing how the future looks, but you have this feeling like you're going to work it out. And I think a lot of people, we hear all the time, how do I get into racing? And almost want the pathway like laid out. This is exactly what you need to do. You didn't know what to do. You
My
just took
route
the
was
leap.
very unconventional.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, people give up too early. You know, talent is great, but to work really hard and to find a way to have the talent, you can actually arrive at a higher level than a naturally talented driver with everything going for him or her, because the working driver can overtake. The talent, everyone develops at different times. Everyone develops at different rates, and everyone starts from a different level. You know, I was learning in my early 20s, learning my craft. So I was never going to be the most visually talented at that moment, but I learned my craft, and then because I had some ability, my talent and my ability came together, and because I had the work ethic, and I really didn't mind if it was a bad day, I would grind it out to win. I would, whatever it took, I would fucking grind it out, the result, because I have no option to this failure, or I go home a failure, or I make this work. Yeah.
That's one thing John has always said, that for some drivers, natural talent is their biggest problem.
For sure.
Because then they can get away with, well, one weekend they're winning and it's really good. You see them have these peaks and troughs, and maybe that's like a bit of a Lando Norris maybe in Formula One, where it's like one weekend is really on it and unbeatable, like last weekend, then another weekend, or Piastri's even kind of going through it now.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting point you make. And just about this, before we started the podcast, you said you can't have a plan B. at anything you want to do in life, you need just a plan A. Can you just explain that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't go into a business without having a plan B, an exit. But I think in sport, you have to be all in. There is no contingency B, because then you lose your intensity. It has to really, leave no stone unturned. Absolutely look for every detail, because there is no B option here. I have to make this work, and then you learn that higher level of intensity and that willpower to will your universe forward. It's like your reality is being influenced by your willpower to succeed. And we've all been there, everyone. I had very difficult years when I stopped racing because I'd solved all my problems behind the wheel. Suddenly I'm now needing to be something different, and you can't change your universe that quickly. You need to, you have to learn your way. And I was able to, with solving all my problems behind the wheel, I was able to change my outcome and have success because, I was able to will my universe into a direction that was good for me. And I think if you have that willpower and you have that energy and that vibe, people will naturally follow you and support you. And that's something that I always was able to bring good people in from the team, or, like John here, my family, my sponsors. They were living the dream with me. And that's what pulled me forward, to achieve what I achieved. So it was, I just think if you've got a plan B in sport, you can't go into the boxing ring and say, well, I'll be okay if I don't win today. You've got to be full on. I'm going to win today. And it's not easy.
Yeah, because that level of commitment, people will naturally not want to let you down as well. Think, God, Andy's turning up today. Like we've got to turn up as well. I think that's the energy that you would bring. But I want to talk through, what does a day look like then? You've just sold your house, you've bought a caravan, assuming don't have any money.
None.
Family's living in this caravan. And what does your day look like?
So quite funny really, but we had a very small caravan. And in the front of the caravan where you'd normally eat, I had a PC with a printer and an office, no further away from here to me and you. And in the back of the caravan was a bed. And I literally would wake up in the morning. It sounds horrible, but I would literally write sponsorship proposals all day. And I would have a hit list of people, and I would literally be doing the presentation, writing the letter, emailing it out, and then have a spreadsheet of all the follow-ups that I needed to make. So I would literally be phoning, once I'd wait 2 or 3 days, I hope you've received my proposal, have you ever looked at the benefits of motorsport, would that interest you, the corporate side coming along, maybe the branding, and I literally would follow them up every day. And actually I convinced myself that obviously a no was still a success, because most people would say no, but I would go, every no is one closer to a yes. So if I have 100 no's today, I'm 100 no's closer to a yes tomorrow. And I managed to generate all the sponsorship required for, I had some amazing sponsors and friends who helped me as well. But particularly my Formula 3 season, I raised all the money. I had 30 sponsors, and I literally had raised every single penny for that program through commercial sponsorship in Formula 3.
How the hell, that sounds fucking terrible. Like waking up in your caravan, going a couple feet away to your desk, and all day, like mind-numbingly, writing out these sponsorship proposals, and then getting a series of no's all day as well. I can imagine. I know what it's like trying to get sponsorship. How do you stick with that? How do you not lose? I know you've got this burning desire to be a racing driver, but how do you not get depressed and lose faith? Because I think when people hear that, they think, there's no way I could do that. What kept you going?
Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of negative days, where I'm looking out the window and it's pissing with rain. I think, what the hell am I doing here? But my desire was so great to not fail at this. I was like back against the wall every day. So I had to do it. There was I couldn't just let Joe, my wife, down and my family down and, everything. I was like, this is it, and well, I just had a burning desire to get to, and it, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It wasn't particularly nice. When I look back on my career, I had an amazing career, but I had some really hard, years, where it knocks the stuffing out of you. You kind of almost use your whole life energy just to get through those years. And, that's why I say a lot of drivers, do retire early, because to win at a high level and to stay at that level, what you have to put in, you should get to the end of the season and almost say, there's nothing left from me anymore. I can't do another year like that. I used to say that every year to my wife, and she's like, it's what we do. Don't give up now. Let's get through the Christmas period, and then you have a bit of time with your family, and then then you go again. Every year you should get to the point where you can't continue because you are emotionally exhausted.
Well,
yeah.
It's an absolutely amazing story, but I know there's going to be lots of husbands watching this, maybe with kids in racing as well, and they'll be thinking, how the hell did your wife let you do this and keep up with, the shit of just you having to work all day here, live in a caravan? How the hell did you convince her to come with you?
Well, I mean, she is an amazing person, first of all, and she's now Joe Priaulx, MBE, because she's an amazing person. She literally goes all out to help people, and what she's done with the charity the last 22 years has been amazing. To earn, what she's earned, the accolades. She does it because she loves it, but she supported me and she believed my dream. And I say this very carefully, but choose your partner wisely when you're going into a sport. You need somebody that is fully engaging in what you do, non-distracting, because 99% isn't good enough. And you are going to use all of your favors up. You're not going to be a good father or a good husband, a good partner for quite some time. Because you have nothing left. But without my family, without Joe, I would never have achieved my success because I was doing it for them. So it's like, it's a partnership. I see this a lot with many young drivers, and we all talk about it, male or female, we all, get distracted. Love and relationships are very powerful energy. And it can ruin a career. Because you lose your grit and you lose that focus and that power from within your body to take your universe forward, and that costs lap time. It costs focus. You need that laser focus. You need to leave no stone unturned. You need to go home and you should be thinking of that setup. And is there that tweak of bump or front rebound, or is it that diff? Maybe I should open it. You constantly need to be thinking.
Immersed in it, yeah.
What can I do tonight to make tomorrow slightly better? And that's everything you've got. You should be scanning the car in your mind. You should be scanning the team and scanning yourself and your performance and how you can be better tomorrow or next week or the next race. I remember a bad race. I was unbearable to live with for 2 weeks until the next race because it hurt so much, So poor Joe, long-suffering wife, who's now I've seen how much she's been through. Because not only did she have all the financial stress, but she also had the pressure of. We all forget, but motor racing is dangerous. We see it with our children going through, and there is another, added connection that many racing fathers go through, which is their kid, and how they want to protect them. And I do feel for racing dads out there because, although we are a nightmare, it is a very hard place to be. You got the financial worry. You've got the emotional connection. You've got the concern over whether your son or daughter's going to be okay today. And I know racing's not as dangerous as it used to be, but it still is really dangerous what you're doing out there. And there's so many pressures that most people don't really see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you mentioned if you have a plan B, don't bother. With the parents out there that have got their son or daughter into racing where they're in financial stress, remortgaged the house, sold the car, whatever, right? And their son or daughter doesn't have the same commitment you had. It's maybe a difficult conversation to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's always an option, motor racing. It's not just Formula One. It's not just the pinnacle, but there is, other options in motorsport, and there is a world outside of Formula One. And I hate to see families put everything they have in. They may have built their own business. They may have been very successful, and that's made them, a fantastic, father or mother. I hate to see them be pulled into motorsport. The whole belief of, karting and all the formula, and this is where you're going to have to be, and this is Formula One, and you've got to do all of this. If your child isn't quite at that level of natural ability and that absolute 1% material, there is other options out there.
Yeah.
And, I've been guilty of being so brutally honest with people that I've connected with, because I don't want them to go down that road. I mean, I was 28, nearly 29 years old before I got my first paycheck in motorsport, before I earned a penny.
So how did you earn a living until that point?
Just coaching and a little bit of sponsorship, living off that. My wife, Jo, works in the ticket office at Silverstone, so she went from a banking job to £4 an hour ticket office, and then she moved into the BRDC race administration. I got some support from, sponsors, and I could live a little bit, and we were able to just get by. We did move into a house, a very small house, but we had like a little 2-bedroom property, and then Sebastian came along, and that was actually the first, for me, that was the real realization that, if I haven't made it by 30 and I'm not bringing in any money, then I've really got to be careful now.
Yeah.
We've seen drivers go on and on and on, and it's tough, But 29 years old with Honda in British touring car was my first paycheck. So, it took a lot of catching up.
And how the hell did you find? You must have had some incredible structure to your days and weeks to do the sponsorship side of things, to keep yourself afloat. And I know Joe was helping you out with that as well, but with the coaching and stuff like that, and then to do training and keep yourself sharp and fit for racing. How did he do that?
So at the end of the season, I always used to say I hung up my race suit and I took out my business suit, and I'd be very strict. I'd work from 9 to 5 on sponsorship every day in my office at home. So it was actually Sebastian's little bedroom. He had a cot there and I had a desk. I used to look out the window, and I just used to hammer it all day till 5 o'clock in the evening. And then obviously I'd go to the gym. I'd wake up early in the morning, go for a run. Obviously the test days, and prepare well. I always remember Christmas being the hardest time, because that's the time when, all of us racing drivers are waiting on a deal or and I was actually saying to somebody the other day, actually some friends of ours, that I don't remember really ever enjoying one Christmas. I was always concerned about January. What was I going to do? Have I got the deal? I did the shootout. It was good. Many times Joe and I have sat on the floor in tears because we've heard on December the 15th that we haven't got the ride next year because it's gone to, a German driver because that's what they wanted, or, a driver with more funding, or a younger driver. I was, very often that was one of my, I did a shootout in Formula 3, which was with Jaguar, actually, the junior team. And I was actually the quickest on the shootout. I was 27 years old. That was Formula 3. And I literally won the shootout. And I thought, that's it. I'm in. Jaguar, drive, maybe some testing in Formula 1. Engineers phoned me after the test, said, mate, you are stand out, the guy that we want in the car for next year. So that was like November, just gone back from Macau. Had a really good finish in Macau, finished on the podium. I finished fifth, in Macau, and I finished on the podium in Korea. And then I was like, this is it. Now, and then I think it was December 15th, 16th, we got the phone call. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is it. Sorry, we went for somebody else. You know, Germany, a little bit of a younger driver, which I get looking back, but you know, we had those many times, those moments. But I always say, you can be going down the darkest tunnel, but you don't know how close you are to the light. You know, it can look a long way away, and suddenly, bang, the moment happens. And without those previous negatives, I wouldn't have been ready for that. The moments when they did happen, you know, and that's when I made it count. Yeah.
And then with your career, what was the first step when you came over here, got the sponsorship to do something? What was the first thing you raced in?
I did a little bit of Formula Renault, which, to be honest, I should have just started in Formula 4. I'd come out of a Formula 1 car in hill climbing at 21, and I was like, right, I'm ready for F3000, you know. And I should have really just gone straight back to Formula Ford. So I started doing some Formula Renault, and I realised, like, I was almost last on the grid, if not last. You know, I was like way out of my depth. I had no idea about line and length and momentum, and you know, I was hill climbing, point and squirt, big power slide, you know, get out the corner as quick as you can, run as close to the bank as you can, edgy and ballsy, but I had no idea about setup and momentum and how to change the attitude of the car with brake pressure and everything else. So I started Formula Renault, and then I stepped up to B-class Formula 3, and again it was just a mess. And I started coaching at Silverstone, doing some instructing, and that's when I actually first of all met John. And he was probably one of the first guys that really showed me how to become what is the art of a racing driver. How does a racing driver really work? How does he really go about his working method? What is his working method? You know, and he looked and talked to me, and we did some stuff together, like some one-to-ones, and he almost gave me the light, you know, to what you are good, but you know, you're all over the place with your braking, you know, many different aspects of my driving. And we agreed at that moment to try and do something like in Renault Spiders the following year. So I managed to bring a budget together, a bit of sponsorship, a bit of this and a bit of that, and put a half season of Spiders together with John sort of coaching me a little bit, and coming to some of the races, and started to show a little bit more, you know, speed, getting the odd podium, getting up there a little bit. And then during that winter of Renault Spider, my first season, John said to me, I think you should, you know, try some meditation, and you should come to a course and learn to visualize, learn to tap into your intuition. He could see I was just all coiled up, you know, and that wasn't bringing out my natural driving, because I'd had a lot of adversity. I mean, I'd left Guernsey 3 or 4 years before. So I'm like 3 or 4 years down the road here, you know, 2 failed seasons of single seaters, and then Renault Spider first year, botched it together. So, and I really hadn't won a race, you know, I was like showing speed, but not really bringing it together. I went and did a meditation course, the Silver Mind method. I learned about visualization. I learned about changing my reality. I learned about intuition, started to dig into my understanding of what was making me tick. And then the following season, I managed to bring together a proper budget for the first time. And I think that was partly due to my mental visualization. I was just focusing on receiving the check, getting the money in the bank, and paying the team. And I managed to put together a deal. And the following season, with the help of John, Silver Mind method, a different type of Andy Priaulx with his approach, I actually won every single race from pole position.
That's insane, yeah.
And literally won the whole championship early. So it kind of put me on the map. Who's this Andy Priaulx guy? Going from that to that. And funny enough, this is where it gets I mean, I don't know how long you've got, but
We've got all day. It's all right.
So normally the Renault Spider champion gets a test in the Renault Williams touring car. At that moment, Williams was just pulling out of touring car racing, and I actually said to Renault, look, instead of giving me the Williams test, would you give me a test in the Formula 3 Prometemi car? And they were like, well, it's a bit off our sort of normal route here, but with everything, with the light of what's happening, and we'll give you a run. So I got a prize here at Silverstone to drive the car that Jensen was vacating, just in a well, it was like a 20 lap, prize, and so I knew that was happening. I prepared really, really hard for that with John. We were working on everything. We had no simulators. It was just visualization, working with everything. And so I arrived at the test, and they're probably thinking, who's this 26-year-old guy, wanting to drive a Formula 3 car? And I'd never forget, I never waste any opportunity. And I remember the first 5 laps, go out, do a 5-lap run, come back in, we'll look at the data, and then we'll go from there and give you another run. And I remember them opening the laptop, and they were like, wow, that's pretty close to what Jensen was doing around here. Straight away. I was already quite positive. Anyway, I finished that test, and they were very impressed, and I was chasing Renault down after that. Look, give me a proper crack at this. It's a subsidised drive in Formula 3. Put me forward. And they're like, wow, Christ, I mean, man, it's a bit... So I get a phone call from Serge Sunnier, who said, look, okay, Andy, yes, you did a great job. I would like you to come to Manicourt to do another test. So I was like, wow, I've got another chance. So John and I drove down to Manicourt, and I'd never seen the place before, and it's raining. So I've got the Renault Formula 3 Prometemi subsidised car in front of me there, and I jump in the car, prepare for the test, and I have a little off. Manicourt at that time was so slippery, and I'm not really a Formula driver, so I'm still learning. So I nipped a wheel and went through the gravel and came to the box, and it's quite embarrassing, the gravel's coming out. You know how it is, guys, we've all done it.
Yeah.
And so they got it running. Next thing, fired it up. Go out again, do another short run. Go out 5 or 6 laps, pinched a wheel, straight off through the gravel again. Came into the box, and everyone's kind of, trying not to look at me, really. And then let's have lunch. Okay, so we stop. And then during the lunch hour, Serge said, Andy, come with me. He said, we sat in the car, and I'll never forget it. He said, Andy, I am afraid I am seeing everything that I don't want to see. So we stopped the test now. This is
midday.
Oof.
So I was like,
Sting.
but Serge, please, you cannot stop this test. You've got to let me see this through. It's everything. This is everything I've been focusing on my whole life. Please let me continue the test. I won't let you down. And after some collaboration, John's already got the car on tick over. He's ready to go home. This ain't happening. This ain't happening. And then in the afternoon, I drove my heart out and won the test and won the shootout and ended up with a full-time seat with Prometemi.
No way.
Subsidised by Renault in Formula 3.
That's crazy.
And I was going home an hour before. So, and that's how my whole career's been. I've had a few moments in my career which, if they hadn't happened, I would never have been sat here as a world champion, But you got to turn it round, Sometimes the most challenging situations bring out the very best. And there's quite a few times where I've turned my career around in those awful moments. I had it at least a handful of times where I'm about to lose this. This is not happening for me. And I've turned it round and managed. But it is very, very painful, and it takes all of your body and energy you have to come up with the goods. And that's why you have no plan B.
I think what you've just proven there as well is that there's so much that goes into being a racing driver, because you would not have had that opportunity to go out again in the afternoon had you not had won him over emotionally and, you know, been personal enough with him and good at talking about yourself and bigging yourself up, basically, and telling your life story and winning him over emotionally, which is also what you do a lot with sponsorship.
Yep.
You know, lots of the sponsors, they're not going to sponsor you if they don't like you as a person. They don't
Yep.
follow your journey. Yes, they need some value. So I think, like, it's just amazing to me how differently that could have gone.
Well, that's what I always say, you know, if you truly want something, everything around you conspires to help you, and it pulls you in that direction. And yeah, it does require a lot of belief. You know, how many gold medalists have you seen, you know, who have achieved the gold? I mean, what they've been through to get to that stage. And we always say champions are made when no one's watching. Well, a lot of motorsports adversity and being able to turn things around on those quiet, dark days when you're on your own and you really are failing. And that's what's going to make you a brilliant racing driver.
That afternoon, you would have unlocked a different level of driving, by the sounds of it. When you actually drive your
Yes.
heart out, I think.
You find another level.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And I always imagine it's like hunting down a car. It's just like a beach ball coming away from you. Can't quite catch it. But you have to win. And you've got to find that extra level, you know, and it comes from willpower, and it's the commitment to not miss the apex. It's that commitment to not be offline. It's that commitment to pass instinctively, but not in a clumsy way. Clean, 100% commitment with no risk. It's those moments that make you, you know, make you put you to the top.
Can you have that commitment but not quite have the skill yet as well? Let's say you're fighting,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like, you have to back it up with skill. So what was your process like with John to work on these things? You didn't have simulators, so what were you doing in between sessions?
A lot of visualizing laps, all sorts of development programs running alongside, road car testing, you know, going to Thruxton with a hire car, you know, driving around with, you know, Tafty or someone sat alongside, looking at yourself all the time to improve, but not in a negative way, in a positive way. You know, looking for weaknesses that give you a positive feeling that you when you solve that, you're going to be quicker and you're going to be even more successful. And learning, you know, I think adversity in motorsport teaches you so much that you can bring into a team on setup, on, you know, just the general way of working that just magnetizes the team towards you to bring, you know, your car and your environment to your direction. And look at Verstappen and look at Alonso and look at these guys that have reached the absolute top for long periods of time. They have that ability to force the result. And I always say, you know, you look at a lot of racing drivers and they all look pretty cool and relaxed with their shades on and, you know, cruising in with their beautiful partners. But actually behind that, there's a lot of work. I mean, Lewis, one of the hardest working drivers in Formula One still. You know, he's chosen not to have a relationship to still be at his best. He's the guy that goes to the sim, you know, during British Grand Prix to find more lap time over in Brackley. You know, you can feel his aura when he's, you know, when he's performing. You know, he has the nation behind him. You know, he's become an absolute icon and ambassador of the sport through exceptional sporting behaviours. You know, look at how he lost the championship to Max, that final championship. I did say,
that was incredible.
I did say that he probably won't recover from for a long time because you know that he deserved to win. They both did. To have a championship taken away in that way is very hard for your soul to get around. And I think that I did say it will take him a long time. I've had similar, where I lost a fourth world title through some technical infringement that was okay before but wasn't okay afterwards. And we went to a sequential gearbox for the final two races, and I pretty much won the World Championship, and then I lost the points from the round because they wouldn't allow us to go, but it was authorised, and those sort of situations take a while to, they really do hurt your spirit, and it takes time.
How do you deal with it?
Just time. It's just time. It's only time. You don't give up, but that energy of, happiness. Happiness makes you fast. A happy driver is a fast driver. And for me, it worked. But you just lose that happiness for a while. And then you have to reconnect to other things in your life, your family or whatever, but still keep your career going. And then you find a new environment that reinvigorates you, a new opportunity, and it slowly comes back. But it does take time. It's not a free ride to the top.
Yeah, and soon after Formula 3, how was your year in Formula 3?
So my year was actually very, very good. The car, Proman Technique Formula 3 car, at that moment, there was a lot of things over engine, and it wasn't maybe the best package during that season. The Mugen Honda was the car to have, but I actually beat my teammate, Matt Davies, who was the year before challenging Jensen for top rookie honours. So I had personally a brilliant year.
Yeah. F1 on your mind?
I think always was F1 on my mind, because no matter how, you've got to aim for the top. So if you don't quite meet the top, you fall to something quite high. And I did have still Formula 1 on my mind. But I did have a number, in my mind also at some point. This is too late for Formula 1. And the touring cars was, very successful in Britain, super touring era. There was good opportunities in DTM. There was, at that time, I not earn a penny. So, I was literally living in a small, tiny house living on 20 quid a week, to go do something with your mates one night or whatever. But that was it. So, I was sort of like at that moment. What really changed my mindset was having Nel Sebastian, my first child, and then I realised that the Formula 1 thing, it's either got to happen, it's either got to happen, or I've got to be earning money. And actually, I had the chance after my second year of Formula 3. I went to Alan Docking, again running really well, winning races, and then I got picked up mid-season. I got a phone call from Derek Warwick to say, Andy, one of our drivers has been banned from the team for one race. Would you consider joining? Would you be happy, or would you like to join? Of course, yeah, I'm totally happy. I'd love to come down and race with you guys. And that was Alton Park in Super Touring, and I had Ivan as my teammate, Ivan Muller, and Jamie Thompson, two of the icons of the sport. And I had a very successful race. I put it on pole for both races. The phone was ringing, and they weren't asking how much money I could bring. They were asking me, what's your fee?
Wow.
And Seb was, small. And then I had EJ, bless him, Eddie Jordan, on the phone, who really wanted me. I used to go and see him across the road, and I'd be telling him everything I was doing on sponsorship, and he was trying to work it. And we had another deal going with Diniz. There was something going on with banking and SG Hambros, and they were a good sponsor of mine. So there was like two possible options in Formula 1, requiring money, and then there was the option in touring car paying me. And that's when I decided I'm now a dad.
Yeah.
I want a career in the sport. So I went with the option.
Yeah.
So, I actually had the option to go with Vauxhall and with Honda. I really purely went with Honda because I was going to earn more money. It was the wrong decision and the right decision. I needed to do it financially. I should have done another year with Vauxhall and would have probably been a absolute contender for the championship, or at least winning races. Whereas the Honda took a lot longer to come. But I had some really good wins towards the end of the season, and then I got picked up by BMW, and then I never looked back after that.
Yeah, and that's where your unbelievable stint in touring cars, really took into place. So with when was the first race you did with BMW? I think it was
Barcelona.
Okay.
And so I signed with BMW, came back from Bathurst. I was racing in the V8 supercars, and I came back from Bathurst, and I had a fax from Ian Flux to say, sign this fax, sign this agreement, give me 10%, and I'll tell you what it's all about. So I was like, sign the deal. And then he said, I've got a deal for you with BMW. They're keen on you. So I phoned up BMW. I went to meet them. And sure enough, I did have a deal with BMW. And I managed to sign with them in 2023, end of 2022. And then I did my first year of European touring car, which went very, very well. I won races and I fought for the championship. And that's when BMW then offered me a much better contract and a much bigger opportunity. And then I never looked back. I won the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you mean 2022 and 2023?
I mean 2002.
Yeah,
and 2003.
I was just going to say.
Sorry, I'm not that young. Yeah, thanks, Rob. Gus, I really appreciate that.
That's
but
all right.
No, 2002, and then 2003, I signed over the winter with BMW. And then really annoying, everyone said, mate, I put you forward for that drive as well. And I told them to sign you guys. So it was Fluxy just being Fluxy. But bless him, we did it. And we went racing. And I never looked back, to be honest. You know, BMW was brilliant. The team RBM, I had a one-car team. And I was able to put my way of working in the most intense way into a team that was receptive. And they really wanted to improve. And they were absolutely the best team I've ever driven with in lots of ways, because Bart Mampay and the way he put the whole project together was phenomenal. And I met somebody who had the same attention to detail in his race team as I did on my driving, and and we've been friends ever since. But literally, you know, we won the European Championship and the 3 World Championships. You know, BMW picked me up for other projects, sports cars, even Formula One. Again, Formula One, I did the whole, when I won the first World Championship, I said to Mario, you know, if I win another one, will you give me a run in the Formula One car?
Wow.
So the second World Championship, I then convinced him to give me a run in the Formula One car. And he agreed. So he announced on the evening that Andy Priaulx is going to drive in Valencia in the Formula One car. It's a prize. He convinced me to do this. And so I prepared like crazy, as you do. Did a lot of training, and actually did a really good job in the Formula One test. I was 30, and actually got a full-time test and development role with Williams from that.
Wow.
Ended up doing lots of tests for them.
How do you hop in such a different car?
Yeah.
Like, I know you've done single seaters, but you've then had this massive stint in, you know, GTs, touring cars. How do you hop in something like that, which is at the pinnacle of motorsport, of what it can do? Single seater, loads of horsepower, loads of downforce. How did you extract on one test day?
You know, it did everything better than a touring car. So, like I always say, you know, these touring car drivers and you know, Scott McLaughlin and, you know, a lot of these, you know, top touring car drivers do actually go, like Matthias Ekstrom. They are world class, these guys. And if you're at the top of your game in touring car or DTM or British touring car, world touring car at that time, was the depth and the grid. You know, Tarquini and Menu and Ricard Rydell, and you could easily be 22nd on the grid alongside Alain Menu. You know, it was like there was a depth there. And, you know, what I learned, I was in a car testing 60 days a year. I was driving all the time. My senses were tuned.
Yeah.
And I was driving some GT cars with downforce, and I just got into the F1 car, and like every other moment I had in my career where I just forced myself beyond what I was comfortable with. If they tell me turn 1 is faster, 20 Ks, I would do turn 1 faster, 20 Ks. And you're in a really uncomfortable situation, but your willpower keeps you from making mistakes, and the techniques we learned here, which you guys have done with vision, extending your vision, learn, you know, all the tools that I learned with John and we worked on together, I just used them, you know. So it was a Formula One car. I lift my vision further, you know. I just transferred my vision sooner. It's a faster car, so I just drive with more anticipation and speed up my processor, my mind. And yeah, I mean, but also because I'd worked so hard on setup and because I had so many difficult days in racing, I was really able to give them feedback on the car, which they really liked.
Yeah.
And then that opened up, a number of other test days, and actually ended up pretty much becoming the reserve driver in Formula One for Williams for a year. Was doing all their big pre-tests, whether it was Vanalunga or whatever. And but I had them at that moment. I had because I'd had so many knocks and very difficult times. I was really convinced I'm not going to go down the Formula One route now. I'm 30 years old. I'm going to stick to what was right, sports cars, touring cars. And I see so many drivers now, going really good, like IndyCar drivers, or getting the opportunity to go into Formula One. And I would be like, really, guys, don't do it. Stay with your discipline. It's so hard, to switch. These guys are to Formula 2. They've done everything. Formula 3, F2. They really know their craft, and I wouldn't recommend switching at that stage.
It sounded like you felt right at home with BMW at first, and also it doesn't sound like. Was there a feeling of your work ethic had to be so high before you got that opportunity that when you got there, did it feel then kind of you were settled in a normal? Obviously, you were still working extremely hard. Yeah. But was it because also naturally everyone else is operating at a extremely high level? Maybe that was why.
I think, I always had to try and make my car better, make me better. And that way of working, the detail way of working, and my working method, the way I did notes and detailed everything and detailed the setup, I was able to really communicate with my engineer, like look into his eyes and give him absolute detail of where my issues were without overcomplicating and talking a big story, but like honing down to my 3 main limiting factors, not talking about the whole lap and completely confusing, but being very precise. This is my number 1, this is my number 2. If you get a chance, this would be number 3. That would be nice, but this is the one I need. I need to improve the front mid-corner grip off brakes in turn 4 and 6.
Would you go away, sit with yourself for a bit and understand, rather than get straight out of the car and then discuss,
do the
digest
instant stuff, like during the session, with tuning my intuition and the Silver Mind method and the areas that I learned to tap into my intuition. I used to use the 3-finger technique, which I practiced at my level. So I used to go to my meditation level and I would tap into my intuition, and then I would use a trigger. So I was able to give instant feedback on the car. And then I would go away. I would look at all of my detailed notes, make a detailed run, notes from the session. And then I would go back to my 1, 2, 3 main limiting factors. And I would leave that with the team. I'd then go off and do my media stuff. They would work on it. And then they would go from my feedback during the session to all the feedback they had at the test days to all of my feedback they had over all the other tests with all the notes backed up one after the other. They just knew where the problem was, and we were able to and we were a single car team. We didn't have multi-car in the team. We were doing this all on my feedback and the strong engineering of RBM.
And can you explain vision in a race car? You touched on it for viewers and watchers. You lifted your vision in a Formula 1 car. How does someone improve that? Because typically, it's not as easy as it seems, is it?
No, it's not. You've got to learn to drive with your peripheral vision. You've got to speed up the processor. And it takes a while. You kind of lose your orientation. So it's learning to recalibrate line and length and exit speed and general feeling of, if you have a vision that's come back, it's quite easy to sort of draw the dots, break point, turn point, apex, exit. When you come back and extend your vision, that's more of an arc and a carve and more intuitive. But also you're relying on more peripheral vision and also senses more. So it's something you needed, but I practiced it all the time. You know, every test day I was lifting my vision, working my exit vision, you know, just really working on the tools that I had, you know, to find and get the maximum from. I never wasted a lap in a race car.
Yeah.
I did every lap was the most important lap of my life, and I would always, even if it's you're on shit tires,
Yeah.
and you know this is a 10 lap run, just bring everything up to temperature, and you know just to get you redialed back in. I would not waste it. It was like the most important lap of my life.
Yeah, one of the best drills here. We're at iZone Driver Performance. For those that don't know, it's one of Europe's leading driver training facilities. One of the best training drills is the consistency run. It's like, don't go for a new best. Every lap, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to you have to beat your total session time. And all of a sudden, just by doing that, people get PBs.
Yeah.
Because every lap, all of a sudden, has this raised level of intensity that they didn't have before. So,
I'll spin off of that. I also think it's funny because I'll do like consistency run, get better and better and better and better. Then I kind of plateau before a race weekend because I've done 2 weeks of relentless consistency runs. And then I have a head-to-head with, at the time, like a few years ago would have been Jordan, who used to work here, but now it's Marcus or Bart, really quick on the sim. And all of a sudden, I go out, I've got this new level of this fucking matters now because I'm really competitive. And all of a sudden, I'm 2/10 faster. And I don't really know, like, I couldn't pinpoint as to why exactly. Like, oh, I braked a bit later here and I did I think they just did everything.
You squeezed it.
Yeah, every microscopic part of the lap, every corner, as well as I could possibly do it because it fucking mattered.
That's it. And you guys, I've seen you here a lot over the years. So that's a great example of, you know, continued effort. And, you know, I often see the guys and girls that come through and I can see the winners before and even if they're not at the level, I can see that, you know, I can see it in them. You can see it. And you guys have stood the test of time. You're still here doing your jobs and working and, you know, in the sport. And that takes a lot of effort. And to put up with John for so long, he is the most hardest taskmaster and he's relentless and so disciplined. And it's really hard work. But I always say this is like the old sweaty boxing gym. This is where you really learn your trade. And this is where you learn to fight and, you know, spar daily. And you've got to be in that environment regularly to then be comfortable with it when it matters. So many of us just go from one race to the next and suddenly you're in qualifying and it all matters now. You're judged and defined by that moment today. And if you haven't prepared for that moment, how can you be at your best? Someone can beat you.
yeah.
There's going to be a Verstappen out there who's on the sim all night racing, and there's going to be, you know, an Alonso who is just almost impossible to beat as a teammate.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that person, so you've got to be ready for that.
I was going to ask literally about teammates because we're in this unique sport. We talked about it with John. Your teammate isn't really your teammate in other sports, right?
Yep.
And there are politics involved. You've got to get the team on your side. Have you had a situation where your teammate has been so close where you're having that battle?
Yeah. I've had it too many times.
Yeah.
But towards the end of my career, you know, I had some fantastic teammates, and I always say, you know, one of those was Augusto Farfus because he was young, up and coming, and I was experienced and the reference. But he was and has proved now correct. You know, my judgment on him was right. He has stayed longer at BMW than I stayed, and he was my teammate, and I had to work really hard to find another level, and that was as a multiple world champion. And you know, there's always somebody coming along who's going to be in a better place at that moment, or you know, just suits the car or the geometry and the way the car's gone this year. You know, it's always going to maybe suit someone a bit better. And I had, you know, a very tough few years. I must say he's one of my really good friends, but I really disliked him at the time because, you know, it meant everything. It was putting the roof over my head. But, you know, I always said I needed someone like him to become a better driver.
Yeah.
And others. And towards the end of my career, I was in a very, very great spot with Ford, where I was very experienced, still performing at a high level, but the best part of my career was behind me at that moment, so I was not so nervous. I knew, let's say, the longest part was behind me. Maybe there's still some real good opportunities ahead, but I had more calmness, and that's when I decided to stop, because I always had this ultra level of focus that brought me performance. And one of my best Le Mans, I was 43. I was absolutely on my A game. The following year I went there, and I just felt like something changed very slightly. I can't put a finger on it, but there was something small. But actually I was all right with it. And then I spoke to my boss, Larry, and said, Larry, this is the moment. And very kind of Larry, he said, no, I still want you. I want you to develop cars for me, and I want you to stay in the Multimatic family. And here I am today. I'm 52, and I've just driven a hypercar this afternoon. So, there's so many, still a lot of things I have to give to the sport. I also love working with the young guys, working with you guys, and working with, I like it when the phone rings and someone says, ask me, how do you solve this problem? And getting an overview of somebody's career and how to, to find that. There is no silver bullet in motor racing, but to find that direction. Look, you're thinking too much about the braking. Drop your shoulders, extend your vision, but squeeze it. Don't miss an apex. Keep your laser focus. And, everyone has challenges all the way through the career. You're racing one of the hardest championships there is out there at the moment, and you're going to win, but you need to know that, it's a moving target, and, to get on that A game, you're going to have to hit your marks perfectly. You're going to have to be prepared better than anyone else, and you're going to have the best car on the grid. And when all of that comes together, you'll be ready. But finding that way of working and finding that direction is I love that. That's where I've always solved my problems behind the wheel. So I've had so many dark days. I've left the circuit many times where I've been off the pace, and you've sat in the hotel room staring out the window, wondering where the lap time's going to come from, and you find it at some point. And I've had so many of those experiences that I love giving that to the young guys, young girls.
I think one big takeaway from your whole career is just everything we've spoken about is centered around absolute intensity. This fucking matters. And I think that you touching on me doing Super Cup this year, and thank you for saying I will win at some point, but I'm so glad I had a really tough year trying to find sponsorship, hence why I only did Super Cup and not much testing and another championship, blah, blah, blah. But I had that kind of excuse as well, and I did let that take away a bit of intensity from me. I just had a good conversation with John about this. And amongst other things in my life that I needed to people I needed to cut off, I think, to reach my potential, which I've recently done. And I can already feel, after a difficult year, having made some difficult decisions recently as well, to, maximize next year. I've got the fire in again, and I said
You've
to
had
John,
to go through that.
Yeah.
You have to know what bad is to know what good is.
Yeah.
And you have to go through low moments. If you've been protected from those moments, you're not going to be the best racing driver. You have to experience those low moments and feel it. We talked about Lando. I mean, I really, really love Lando. I want him to win the championship. I think this year he's starting to find another level. But because he's had his career mapped all the way. Yeah. And he's worked hard, and he's driven a lot, and he's driven really, really well, and he is naturally talented. But as you say, someone who's got a similar talent, who has grinded it out, been in hotel rooms on their own all their life, left home from Australia at the other side of the world, been uncomfortable for a long period of time, the Piastri, that's the one you're preparing for. And Lando's starting to work it out. I think he's driven exceptionally well. And obviously, perhaps she's having a little low. But I think Lando's just found another little level, and he didn't need a long, big step, but another little notch has come up. And those are the, you know, I always say when you close the door on the grid on Sunday afternoon and it goes quiet and the mechanics wish you best of luck and, you know, you're on your own, that's the moment you're preparing for. When it all goes quiet, the car drops on the ground and it's down to you and what you're going to do in this moment to make the difference. And, you know, you're looking down into turn one and you're convincing yourself that this is going to be the best race of your life. And you might be 15th on the grid, you know, but you might get into the top 10 and you might, you know, that 1 point might make the difference between you being Super Cup champion next year or not. That's what you're driving for. The races when no one's watching, those are the ones you're really learning your trade.
And is that where do you think someone like Max is just a league above anyone where it comes to when it's the bad races don't seem to be bad at all, do they?
He's better on his bad days. I think he's just, I mean, he is exceptional commitment. I think he's had great guidance from his father and who's been a hard taskmaster on him. But I think he's put it's about putting pressure on your kid, but also putting your arm around them, having accountability, making sure they're accountable, but also you're dealing with a human, mental health. You know, there's a lot of mental health issues in sport. You know, it's finding the balance. You know, Max has just got that extra level of application ability. He doesn't get distracted. He's a family man. He's not bothered about the red carpet and the ego and the image.
Yeah.
He is just wanting to get behind the wheel, whether that's a sim, a GT or a Formula 1 car. He is just wanting to drive at that high level in everything, every day, all the time. Your work, you know, that would be a really hard team, mate. That, you know, I wouldn't want to see, you know, anyone in that environment, really, to be honest. But, you know, he's the level. That's it. That's what everyone's aspiring to right now. Yeah,
because I'm always curious because it's so fascinating hearing all your preparation and what you've gone into doing the silver method, etc. It's just, it's fascinating. I always wonder, you know, everyone's preparation is different, isn't it?
Sure.
You know, you see all the world champions, Alonso, Hamilton, Max, they'll be preparing in such different ways, but then they're neck and neck on the track.
But they are preparing.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And they have a huge work ethic. You know?
I don't think they're forcing themselves to do it, though, are they?
They're driven.
They just have no option but to do it.
They're driven. They're driven. And, I mean, you know, and I'm seeing more and more George Russell seems to be showing the same level of intensity. And, you know, I always say, you know, it's very hard to be that person because you are going to fall out with people in your team and you are going to have difficult moments. But I always found if you maintain it and you're a good person, the teams dislike you at the beginning, but they love you by the end. And, you know, John and I have spoken about this a lot, and every team I've ever driven with, you know, we have a bond, and we walk back into every team with open arms, but it wasn't always comfortable. You know, and we see how Alonso and all these guys, they are demanding the best. They are defined, you know, and at 44, he's still got it. You know, I mean, that is really hard physically and mentally, but you know, if you want it enough, you will find a way. Yeah.
And is that like also when we talk about discipline with fitness at that age, is it really not having the alcohol?
Yeah.
Making sure you're really strict with your diet, obviously.
I think it's just, you know, you will have to adapt. You know, at 44, you have to do things differently. You can't go training hard all week and expect to be at the Grand Prix in a good level. You need longer recovery, but like adapting, you know, doing your training, but being clever with it, being clever with your food, go to bed early, you know, see so many people having late nights, you know, like I was super disciplined, like 9 o'clock, you know, I was going to bed. I was getting the hours before midnight, and as I got older, I was more disciplined with that. And these are tapping into your life energy, and using it in a directed way. And I think that's where these guys are able to do it at such a high level, and that keeps them going for so long.
I think for like listening to you and John, who obviously you worked together for a long time on performance, you don't miss any of the finer details, whether it be like when you talk about hard training and discipline, etc. People think it's just all sim, gym, testing and sponsorship before you end up getting paid on a professional contract. But I think like what separates, your Andy Priaulx and your Max Verstappens and Kobe Bryant's, whatever, at the top of their sport is the finer, really boring stuff, like not having so much fun going out drinking, not like just being super disciplined with your bedtimes.
Yeah.
I don't even know, like there's loads of boring, mundane stuff that you might not want to do that adds that little 0.5%. And I think that's just what separates. Yeah.
And I will say that when I decided, during that COVID year to stop racing full time, it's like I still would race and do stuff, but full time, it was like the weight came off. Was it really? And I had a nice glass of red wine, and I was like suddenly seeing a life that I never seen before.
That must have felt amazing.
It did, and that's why I put on weight. But you can't carry on forever at that level. You gotta have a life. But those guys do have, guys and girls, they do have that extra dedication, in all aspects of their life. Whether it's rugby or football, the Beckham, the guy that was taken off the team but still turned up for training every day and ran up and down the sideline just doing his own training, and the team pleaded to let him back on to the manager. The manager let him back on. He started to play again, started to play well, and he had one of the best years of his life. But he was off the team. Yeah. He was running up and down the sidelines, but he always turned up.
I think it's coming to... I had a good point. Forgotten it. That's all right. What were we just talking about? Results. No. So during your, what I think it is during like any like sporting career, is especially for you with it being so intense and everything mattered so much, that your happiness, and this is what I explained when people say, "Oh, you race Super Cup and you just go around Monaco and you go like you travel to all these places." I'm like, yes, but you don't enjoy it unless it goes well. Like no. I don't, which sounds bad to a lot of people that be watching this have never gotten a race car before or never been in a top professional sport. Oh, great time for the camera today. I'll finish that point. The camera's on me anyway. But your happiness during your career is dependent on your performance and your results and the outcome. It's not dependent on, let's go for a drink with my mates at the pub or, whatever it is with the kids maybe or something. I don't know. But like, yes, racing around Monaco, if you're paying for just like a laugh, would be amazing. But actually, when you're in the car doing it, okay, you can look back if you win on the weekend, maybe go for a drink on Sunday night. That's Absolutely. An amazing feeling. Yeah. But during the weekend, fucking hell, it's not fun.
No. I was going to say, final question from me. We've obviously talked about the huge challenges in racing, right, that you've gone through. People that follow the podcast, listen to it, do sim racing, and always want to know how to get into it through that. Are you seeing a real shift in the talent through sim racing because it's growing very rapidly? Yeah.
I was very anti, old school. You got to feel it through your bum. You build your neuro pathways up. It's all equilibrium. It's all movement around the car, and it still is that. But I think sims have become so good now, and I think the true test of that is Max saying he finds a higher level of competition on the sim than he does in the afternoon at a Grand Prix weekend. That shows the level of intensity that is required to win on sim racing, which can definitely now carry over to the reality in the real world. It definitely can.
Yeah, so just to keep working at it, but also at the same time, if you have the ambition to get into a real life situation, it's probably to make the right contacts, right?
Yeah, I think you're going to need to win at a very high level sim racing and meet the right person, a Verstappen or somebody who's prepared to give you a chance. And there's not many chances out there, but there are chances. And I think it's going to change. The sport is changing. The way in is changing. The route is changing, and what's possible is changing. And I think we've got to be open to the possibility that you'll be racing more sim races in the future. How are you judged in a Formula One team? First of all, by the way you work on the sim. They don't put you in a race car; they put you in the sim.
True.
A lot of the top teams will judge you and work with you on the sim first. So it's a very important aspect now.
I just want to thank you so much for sitting with us. Honestly, it's
My pleasure, guys.
truly inspiring.
I'm very pleased to be here, and well done for you guys, what you're doing. And I really enjoyed the John interview last week, and a few weeks ago now. But well
That's
done.
our problem.
Great to catch up with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been
Likewise,
awesome.
man.
Thank you so much.